We had some discussions early on, and we ended up with a team of people who are content moderators and content managers. So we had people who were looking at the Twitter feed, or one guy in particular who managed the Twitter feed, and a couple of people that helped him. We had an email process that we had to respond to, a lot of email. And then we also had comments both on the forum and on the site itself. And so we had people doing moderation in there as well. We largely left stuff alone. I don't think we ever deleted any comments. I did respond strongly to 2 people who made what I felt were just totally stupid comments. And other people, someone else chimed in, no one, the group chimed in on the same thing, so I knew I wasn't alone. My common sense response to their idiocy. The other thing that we did, we did 2 specific other things. It's sort of similar in the same space. One was we chose not to push any political agendas. And there was a lot of media and a lot of other things that were occurring that had political overtones, and we decided to ignore them in most cases. And the other thing we decided not to do was to promote any idiotic behaviour. There are quite a few videos coming up on YouTube of people surfing. There was the 2 inflatable toy people down in Melbourne. I don't know if you know about that. They went riding in the floods and inflatable dolls. So we just chose not to push that stuff. You can just virally push things down by not responding to it.
I'm just going to make a quick comment about the automatic deletion of certain words and that sort of stuff. I believe Maria trialled some of that software, but we did have a concern that because it wasn't always 100% spot on with what it chose to delete, that we didn't want to risk questions about power lines being down in emergency situations being deleted, because then we would miss them and that would be an issue. So we decided just to continue the manual monitoring. We didn't want to take the risk that emergency situations would be missed.
I'd just say that we felt an issue was that a lot of young people, a lot of kids would go on our site, and our information had to be not offensive to them. A lot of really diverse groups of people. We are the police too, so we just sort of made the call that every community is going to make. There's no one answer. Everyone's going to decide where their line is, and it may actually change in time and go in different directions. But yeah, we had a lot of young people. We're an information site, so if you use, people would post these beautiful long posts, and you'd see they'd say one word, and they're the rules, and that's it.
Okay, we're going to take a question from Twitter now. David's going to drive them.
So there's been heaps of questions on Twitter, so we might not get through all of these, but just a few quick ones first. So the first one is for James. Was there a directive about language and tone for posts at QPS Media? I love it how it is written in the first person.
There wasn't really a direct. We gently tried to encourage people to be more human, and I think it just gets to a point where I think we very much started off saying the police would like to advise blah 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 blah. No one would read it, and there's nothing like a crisis to get rid of all that sort of stuff, and just to say, boy, there's a whole bunch of water coming. Basically, is that people just became more and more relaxed. Not too relaxed, obviously, but as they got comfortable with it, as they just had to keep on going, they sort of broke through that wall eventually and found themselves typing much more human sort of responses, which is great.
I think for those of us that followed it, that was a really important part of it. Question for Judith and Maria Ergon. Did you consider harnessing the employee enthusiasm to help your response and workload? You mentioned that a lot of your employees were keen and interested, so did you consider harnessing that?
No, we didn't actually officially harness it. As I mentioned before, we asked people not to make comments about restoration times, etc. But no, we didn't encourage our employees to go on there and make comments, but they did. They were very enthusiastic, they were very supportive, and that was fabulous. Yeah.
Let's take one more, David, from Twitter, and then go to the floor.
Okay, so one more. This is from Stephen, who's actually here. I think given the senior exec's risk aversion, what post-facto measurements have been used to show how well it worked?
Who's the question for?
To anybody, so to QPS or Ergon.
So can you say that again? What post?
So what measurements have been used to show how well it works? What's been reported back to senior execs in order to show how well it's worked?
Well, I think that we hit 10,000 followers, that we had over 6 million views of our news feeds, and to see the number of comments coming back a lot of the management team were actually surprised by that kind of response and the engagement. Was it 15,000 likes and comments? So it was actually saying this is a channel where people want to engage with us. And I think the big one was their surprise, the support and the thank yous that just kept coming in from everyone, that they realised, wow, okay, this is a two-way communication and it's a way of getting our messages out.
Tony? Yeah.
Hi, my name's Chris Fisher. I'm from the Department of Community Safety. That's emergency services amongst a bunch of other agencies. First of all, I want to say, James, your humbleness is nice, but I think you guys have done a great job. I think everyone here agrees with that. And you've certainly, you and I have had many chats over pizza and stuff in the operations centres there, but needless to say, it was an excellent job, and you've broken a path for most of us to be able to now come in behind, so well done. The other point I wanted to make was one of the things that we were looking at in a lot of depth in emergency services in the near future is about community resilience. So to the people on the right, I suppose first of all, when flood aid came up, it came to my office, and a lot of people said, should we advocate for that? And that was a big issue for us, because the questions around matching someone very naughty with someone very nice is a very difficult thing for Queensland government to harbour, right? So we had this issue, should we point everybody at that side, and then someone naughty goes to meet someone nice, and then some issues happen. And many people are aware of that some of the dodgy people that went around Brisbane in the floods and tried to get money off poor people and those sorts of things. So I suppose we need to think a little bit more though about how we empower you guys to do that. You're an example of how the community has created a gap, or filled the gap that the government just cannot fill. Because there will never be an appetite to harbour an environment such as flood aid officially as a government. I don't think, not in the very near future. Despite the groundbreaking work that QPS has done, I still think we're still got a long way to go in terms of being able to have an appetite where everybody knows that that's not the intent, that we're putting someone naughty with someone nice. But unfortunately, if the Premier introduces those two people, we've got a problem, right? So my question for you is, how do we as a government make it easier or empower you guys to do what you do best? Very rapidly, very lean, using resources that are out there. We could never move that agile. So how do we create an environment that allows more of that sort of community activity to work with us in an emergency response?
Okay, first of all, definitely was a big issue for us. We figured that, like, maybe potentially something's going to happen where somebody, there's a movie I think called Craigslist Killer or something, you know, everyone knows about it. It was an issue that was flagged. We decided to just go ahead, and if you look at that, then I would have just killed the project straight away. We were like, oh, we're scared of that. No, it's not going to happen, you know. In the legal side, like, we obviously protected ourselves, just not because we didn't care, but just we had to. In terms of solving that issue, I think that what I'm working towards now, and I've had some discussions with some like pretty big politicians that we got on the radar that asked that exact question. I think that we need to create a resource that has a front and a back. And the front, I'm going to struggle to explain this, I'm still working it out, but the front is the public side that basically, like it's public, it's me, you know, it's flood aid, something like that. And creating a back end that empowers the government to understand what's going on. So some sort of data collection and stuff like that, where they take in user-generated information. So, you know, like, you got a lot of information through your site. You figured out and found out about a lot of stuff through that site. I would be pretty, you know, I'd say that you're still not using it in the best way. No. And you're still learning, and there's 10 times, there's going to be a tool soon, or hopefully soon. I mean, there's enough disasters to teach us enough lessons. a tool where you can harness basically public information. It's two-way. Like you're giving information out, but I dare say they're giving you more information back. So I'm definitely figuring out a way of how to combine, because I think that it should be government. I think government should run something like flood aid. It needs to be powered by government, because your numbers compared to my numbers, unbelievable. You got 170,000 the last time I checked. I don't even know where it's up to now. Our key issue with people having that exact opinion, and I didn't expect the government to get behind us, because I knew that you were going to go, oh, okay, what if somebody gets linked up with somebody, like a kid to some horrible man, and I knew that was a big issue.
Yeah, and that's very true. And I think one of the advantages they had in New Zealand was that we went through this and they saw this. To me, we saw what you guys were doing, but you were another thing. There was lots of people doing lots of things, and it took time for you to become a real thing. This is working, and this is the community using this. Had we known that you were a real thing from the start, that it was going to work, we would have pointed at you straight away. But we've got that issue of, we are the source of truth on this, and if we direct people to something that's really dodgy or something like that, and we're paddling so hard at that point just to do what we're doing, it is very, very difficult.
Learning from this, is identifying people like us, or not me, but the tool that we created. There's tons of different tools that solve different problems. There's volunteering, there's connecting people, there's beds, there's food, there's donations, there's all that. It's taking all those separate services and putting them into one place that's backed by somebody. That's what I'm working towards right now.
Yeah, and on my end, the same thing. We realised that we really had a very small tool set, and as I say, we just paddled as hard as we could with what we had. My head is full of ideas of different things we could do and could have done and all that sort of thing, but we just had to put our heads down and just do what we were doing.
Sounds like information management and the role of government in these kinds of situations is something that we need to be thinking about when we're thinking about preparing for future scenarios. So that might be something we want to talk about in our groups. I'm conscious of time. We started late and we have run over time for this. I'm going to cut a few sessions short, but I know these people on our panel have a lot of information to provide, and there's a lot of people here with questions. So I'm going to take 2 more questions from the floor, 1 more from Twitter, and then I think we'll just cut the group work down a little bit, and also the reporting. We might just select a couple of tables to report and then post that up on LinkedIn. So 2 more questions from the floor. Who's going to get Tony or Lisa's attention first? Anybody? Okay then, Twitter, David.
Okay, so this is actually from LinkedIn earlier on. So if you had your chance again, but had the same resources at your disposal, what would you do differently?
Directed at anybody in particular?
Probably the QPS Media and Ergon people, and maybe Volunteer Queensland as well.
I don't know if we would have done that much differently. I think we pretty much were working at full capacity, and as I say, we did get to a point. Early on, we were trying out different things, but we did get to a point where we just sort of went, we've established what we do, we're doing our job, and we're just working through it. There's always a couple of little things you'd like, wish we could have done this a bit better, wish we could have done that. But in general, I think we did, having the tools that we had at our disposal, we were working at full capacity.
Okay, one more question, David?
Okay, so there's a general there's a few questions around this thing, but how is a groundswell created towards a social media site or platform or initiative when there is no flood?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that one. Only because we have experienced this already. One of our key clients is actually a gentleman who's a helicopter pilot in the States. And he, out of his own money, has funded a communications channel for emergency services flight crew. We built it for him, but it's all his idea, it's all his money, he's funded it, he's raised his own funding to provide for it. So it's actually quite a large site, and it responds massively amongst that community to accidents in the air and other emergency related situations within a very tight-knit emergency services community. So as developers and supporters behind this project, that he's done. You know, we've had quite a lot of, I suppose, experience with dealing with this sort of community and this sort of thing. When they've had helicopter crashes, people have gone down in flames and stuff. There's a massive response on that site to the point where we, as service providers, you know, we've got to deal with server issues and that sort of stuff. He's got a very good big Facebook and Twitter following, so we sort of had experience in that space. So coming back to thinking about how you do that here, and it really relates to the last question you mentioned and talked to Tony about, and which Graeme responded to, about I think that the government is never going to have these tools just sitting there waiting, just in case. But there are organisations, like our organisation, like Graeme's, like other groups of people, it's not just our organisation, it was a bunch of people who were leveraged to produce something. The difficulty that we have both encountered, and that James mentioned, was the fact that the official channels weren't prepared for us, didn't know we existed, they needed to vet us, make sure that we weren't dodgy, etc. If that sort of thing could be set up in front of an event occurring, so that the organisation responsible for dealing with something, whether it's your organisation or some other organisation, community service, etc., can have on tap developers or people that they know can go to and say, we need this now. And they can go, yep, we can scale and provide that for you in 24 hours. Now we've built the site in 24 hours. You know, like, you can't even make decisions and go in that quick.